Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Backstage. Hopefully, all's going well for you. This is a time for all of us to be safe, to be healthy, take care of each other for sure. Now that school's back in session, we have our family of little ones and medium ones to take care of too. So, thanks to our loyalists for being here. To all you people that are new, thanks for being a new loyalist. You're now part of our family, and we appreciate it. Of the many people who are in the Conn-Selmer landscape, there just are some ones that stand out as great friends. And this guest today is certainly one of those for me. We've got about 4 decades of investment in this friendship. He's had a remarkable career that I'll let him tell you about. But best of all, he's the gold standard for band directing and music education. Alfred Watkins, welcome. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Dr. Tim. How are you? I'm doing great down here in Georgia.
Tell us what's going on there. What's happening?
Oh, we're just trying to get the schools open back up, either virtually or face-to-face, and trying to decide on whether we're going to have football today or tonight or tomorrow or next week. And that's for the most part. We're still in the throes of summer. Yesterday was 89 degrees, and that was a chilly day for us. We were happy to have the heat to go away. So we're just rounding up band directors and having conversations and trying to help get everyone through the day.
Yeah. Did they have band camp, Alfred?
Most had virtual band camps.
Virtual band camp.
Yeah, there were a handful that had band camps with social distancing, and I haven't heard that they've had any problems with that so far.
Good. Well, tell our audience about you.
Well, my story is pretty simple. And I became a band director kind of through the back door. The short answer is I'm from a small town, Jackson, Georgia, a metropolis of 3,000 people. And I was inspired to play the trumpet and joined the band in the 6th grade, like most kids. Came through 7th and 8th, joined the high school band, played in district honor band, tried out for all-state band my last couple of years, like any other good band student would. I hung out in the band director's office, who happened to have been an alumnus of my eventual undergraduate alma mater, Florida A&M University, and kind of guided me into that direction. My school years were 1972 to 1976. My high school years were right in there. And so after high school graduation, I went to his alma mater. I wanted to be in the famous FAMU Marching 100 band, and joined the band. As soon as I got there, I found out they paid a huge premium on education, on quality of sound, on pitch, on balance and beauty, and studied the classics, along with some jazz, but it mostly was a classical band director school. And so I had a wonderful 4 years there with some wonderful teachers / role models. I was planning on being a professional trumpeter. I got accepted to the University of Michigan, studio of Armando Gatala, formerly from the Boston Symphony. I was going to study the trumpet as a master's student with Professor Gatala. My mother came down with cancer my senior year, so my plans changed. I chose to move back to near my hometown, which is Jackson, Georgia, about an hour's drive from Atlanta, to be closer to Mom, to help her out getting back and forth to the doctor and what else she needed with her cancer treatment. And I ended up staying in the band directing profession for 37 years. My first 6 years were taught literally in the inner city ghetto of Atlanta. School system of 120,000 students, 22 high schools. The school where I taught was Murphy High School, was rated the number 22. I was just a clean-cut little country boy and thrown into the inner city ghetto to teach high school band where no kids in the band knew a major scale at all. My first day on the job. So we learned a scale. It happened to have been B natural major because one piccolo player could find that note from the music. So we learned the B natural major scale. And I stayed there for 6 years, and I learned to teach. I learned to take care of the students because it was in one of the very impoverished neighborhoods in the inner city. Where the mellophone players play mellophone during concert season. We put towels over the bells of the instrument, had them to play into the stand nice little sort of voce sound, pushed the alto saxes up, played in tune, got a nice little alto blend out of the band. And had a nice concert band the first year. I got real hungry for growth and for excellence after that. And the program took off. And by the fourth year, we were playing Howard Hanson's Chorale and Hallelujah and the Armenian dances with full instrumentation, including superiors and sight reading. But I learned to teach in that community. I learned that what I did not know, I needed to learn. And it was my responsibility to give it to my students. If I didn't give it to them, there's a good chance that they wouldn't get it. Yeah. They hadn't done a formalized concert for 5 years prior to my entrance at all. So I had to turn a program around, but I just wanted to have a band. And I just wanted to make music in class, and I wanted the students to love the joy of music making. And that was at the core of my existence. So I listened, I studied, I read, I transferred everything I knew to my students individually and collectively. And that pretty much guided me throughout. And after 6 years of working there, I was recruited by Bob Coles and Marguerite Wilder and Barry Morgan and Boyd McCowan to teach in the Cobb County School District, which was the exact social and economical, very extreme. Yeah, extreme, one to the other. And I use those two words separately because I think we should learn to use those separately. We kind of use that socioeconomic, but one's a social situation and one's an economic situation. And they were both in opposite directions. Transition with the students was quite easy. Started off with a 120-piece band at Lassiter High School. It was in its second year of existence. I had another band director by the name of George Haddendorf from Chesterton, Indiana, started off the high school at Lassiter. Excuse me. And I've got a little frog in my throat. Excuse me, everybody. And I picked the band up, and we took it off and just flourished and enjoyed every day on the job. Never had a bad day.
How long were you at Lassiter?
31 years.
31 years. Wow. Well, and everybody, all you got to do is look at Wikipedia. Lassiter was at Midwest. They were Bands of America Grand National Champions. I don't think there's any event that you didn't play at one time or another. And it's just, I mean, you are the reflection of what I talk about. And I want you to hit this one for a second. How important were the band directors, your mentors in your life on a 1 to 10 scale?
9. They were not a 10 because the theoretical structural education that I got from my undergraduate school counted for a lot. Yeah. It wasn't just motivation, it was a learned behavior. Between a 9 and a 10, and they were it. Particularly being an African American coming through in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Florida A&M University was a historically Black college. So I was able to see myself with advanced degrees. I was able to see myself as a learned individual on the adult standpoint. So that was beneficial. But the band directors, as I mentioned earlier, my first band director guided me to FAMU. And my college band director I had 2, Dr. Foster and Dr. Julian White, who is still alive. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Foster was the conductor of the ensemble and the leader of the group. Dr. White taught all the methods courses. Mm-hmm. He'd already taught for 10 years very successfully in Jacksonville, Florida. We left Jacksonville and came to Tallahassee. He taught us everything he knew about how to operate a high school band. My sense of musical morals, I was taught by my mentor teachers to teach the students musically, socially, and take care of their emotional needs. And with that comes the physical need of the child, or and as we see it nowadays, the health of the child. So all of those are all encompassing for my background, how I was trained, how I was raised, and what I believed in. So they were very beneficial.
But the joke is, Alfred got there just as the band got good.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at
it. And we know people like that. Everywhere they go, just as they get there, the band gets good.
Yeah, well, that didn't happen quite that way, but it was it had all the potentials for having, when I was at Lassiter, of having all the great ingredients. It's one of those programs where you hear a lot about suburbia of a major city. Mm-hmm. That program just has all the potential to be the best in the state. And that meant, indirectly, if it didn't, it'd be my fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on you.
So it just didn't develop. And so having gone in the second year of the school, and I put the first uniform on the kids' back, then I realized that whatever product the group was going to have would be as a result of my leadership and my guidance as opposed to someone else's.
Yeah. It's a reflection of who's on that box. Given
That's
time.
what I have since learned, yes.
Yeah, well, you're a model for all of us, an exemplar. I'll take a little turn here. We're going through some unusual times, yeah. And I know that there's teachers out there that are just reaching for anything they can. What good advice does the master have for those people?
Well, we have, if we're dealing with this, if we're trying to assist the students musically, socially, emotionally, and now with their health or physically, then we take those 4 prongs and make those 4 prongs a part of our every existence as educators, which is the Latin is to educare. The Latin of educate is to educare. And that goes all the way back to undergrad school. I didn't quite believe it until I began to teach. So if you see those 4 prongs as our responsibility, then our choices are very broad. I think in the era of the pandemic, we have to remember that it touches everyone in the world. It's not a local flu. It's not a local virus. It's not something that happens in Georgia, doesn't happen in Indiana, it doesn't happen in Chicago. It's all over the world. So the whole world suffers and the whole world is crying. And we're all looking for answers. One, I think the teachers, if I were in the classroom, my first responsibility would be to their mental health, making sure that that they feel comfortable, they feel happier than they did the day before and safe. We forget sometimes that households are impacted by COVID-19 differently. Someone may have lost an uncle or an auntie. And for me to talk about working on a piece of music when they're struggling with those things, they don't work. So students have always had confidence in their teachers. But the flip side of that, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for teachers to learn how to educate, how to find new tools to put in the toolbox and not throw out the old tools. And when I was at Murphy, I learned that if I taught one student and taught a second student and a third student, in due time, I'd have a section, as opposed to teaching from the outside in. So the clarinets do this and the flutes do this. So my teaching has always been from the inside out, from one to many, kind of an e pluribus unum kind of a thought process. But each person is important. So I encourage teachers around me to find new tools to teach the students individually, which is this unit. And we can teach them through lecture, as many of us were taught in college, through undergraduate school, and graduate school was even more lecture. Or we can teach them through a series of recordings, or we can teach them through a series of playbacks, as applied professors do every day. Or we can teach them through having them to do listening and assessment of a variety of groups. I think it's important that teachers keep the students somewhat accountable. Not gravely accountable. The beginning of school is the beginning of school. The first 2 weeks are essentially, let's get to know each other, for the new ones coming in and for the older ones to get accustomed to their new positions in the band, which is 7th graders become 8th graders, they're the leaders in the band, or the juniors step up to become seniors. It takes a couple of weeks or so for everyone to learn new roles. And the academic teachers tend to do review of the previous semester for a week or two, then they start to move forward. I think with COVID, it's the same thing. The same thing is true for us. We've got a long 9-month curriculum. And that first 2 or 3 weeks probably needs to be a first month, and making sure that everyone's on page. And we need to know that they're bombarded with academia. Every academic teacher is just trying to get them familiar with their tool. They're moving forward. Some teachers move at warp speed. Some teachers are moving slow. And the teachers in the arts have to make sure that we hold on to them and let them move slowly. Let them talk to each other. Let them learn to laugh once again in a Zoom call. I did a call yesterday with a School of the Arts in Houston. And it was the beginning of their virtual camp. And within 5 minutes, I said, okay, unmute yourselves and just give me a laugh. And they were kind of nervous and we unleashed them and let them laugh, and their personalities came through. And they started to say hello, hi across the board. And that's what they do every day. So that's the first thing we've got to do, is to allow them to have an emotional outlet, and then get into a one-on-one teaching relationship. There are tools out there. I'll be breaking up this last one. There are tools out there that allow for students to play in quartets real time now, as opposed to time lagging Zoom. So that was a long answer for that one question. I'm sorry, Tim.
Well, so no, when we talk about pedagogy, and that's where we all aim, because we're going to get that band really good fast. The environment around it, the climate, the culture, I mean, that's what is supporting it. And from what you're saying and what I've heard from others like you, virtually, there's ways to do this, yes?
Oh, yeah. Well, you build many communities.
Yeah.
You build many communities. As I ended the conversation with the quartet, the tool that plays quartet, I think it's upbeat music. There are a couple of others, maybe a cappella, when you can do a quartet. Well, let's assign them the quartets and simple quartets, so they can just make music together. It doesn't have to be a Brahms string quartet rewritten for the saxophone choir. So they get accustomed to the tool, accustomed to the fact that I'm making music with others, and I can still do this. And then you slide practice reports in there, and you slide mom and dad in there, because they're right over their shoulder in many cases. And the communication from the teacher now to the student can be as much virtual as it used to be written through some email that we send out. We get 1,000 of them, and sometimes they lose personalities. So you can have a virtual session just with the parents of the clarinet section in 7-1 for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And give them an idea as to what we're trying to get accomplished and how you can help them. The old kind of Suzuki method of teaching a child. Everything you know and you've had in your toolbox, pull those back up and use those.
I'm gonna throw one word at you, both as a noun and as a verb, and the importance of it, particularly at this time: communication.
Paramount.
Yeah.
Communication from the teacher to the students and the community with which they live, whether it's all the students, some of the students, sections of students, the whole group, more importantly, the small groups, done any number of times. And communication with the adults in their environment, so they have an understanding as to what you're trying to get accomplished over an arc of a year. And the opposite, the communication from the student to the teacher, and how to be able to, or the parent to the teacher, how to get in contact with me when the child is not feeling well, or when the child simply doesn't want to practice. You say it's okay. It's okay they don't feel like practicing right now. Did you have them practicing a lot last year? They were doing great last year, but something that can't get them to go. So listen on that standpoint. So it works both ways. So in terms of the communication, I think it's even more critical now. I'll give you a little quickie, Tim. And then it happened by accident. My first few years at Lassiter, I had these large influxes of students. 200, 220 kids in the 8th grade class that was on to Lassiter. The retention rate was about 40% from 8th grade to 9th grade. I called every household of the students that chose not to continue and asked them why, wanted to know that the door was open for them and for them to rethink it. It took me a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of hours a day. And I did that for 5 or 6 years, and the numbers just took off and they grew. And that was just the communication. The teachers don't want to do that now. They want to send them an email. But I called every household and got a lot of return phone calls. They weren't long phone calls, but I did that starting in 1982. I did it from about 82 to around 90, just to get the mojo going for the how I wanted the group to go.
It's everything, because communication is the fuel for trust relationships. Trust relationships are what make that kid go, I'll practice extra because I love Mr. Watkins, and I don't want to disappoint Mr. Watkins and all my friends because we're on this family together, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so particularly since we're using digital technology so much, you can send them send the trumpet section a videotape masterclass of Phil Smith, and have them to sign in on some kind of a document that you have that they've seen it. Just a little bit of accountability. And then you have a section on what just the trumpets talk about Phil Smith and what made Phil Smith sound so exceptional, and what made Wynton Marsalis's jazz sound so exceptional. as opposed to Roy Eldridge, or listen to Doc Severinsen and how's Doc sound. And I would suggest for you to do this. Send it to them. It's digital. We can find those tools now, and that still is a very large part of communication. And you start a different kind of conversation that's music generated in the house as opposed to just band.
Well, and it's something we wouldn't have done had this situation.
We would not have done it. We tend to teach large group work. We teach performance very often in the upper middle school and high school grade level, and sometimes we forget music is the core of what we're doing.
No. Just, I mean, in this last few minutes, the number of opportunities and real pragmatic things you can actually do, not just, all of this up in here philosophy stuff, but you should be doing these things. You've given them some tools they can use.
Well, a friend of mine in a session about 25, maybe 30, maybe 35 years ago, named Dr. Tim, motivated me by saying, hey gang, they only get one pass at this. It's our job to give them the best of us when they take this path through our years.
Yeah.
I took it to heart.
Yeah. And if they don't get it, then they're probably not ever going to get it, to be true, honest.
Well, we've been dishonest with the children. We've been dishonest with ourselves.
Yes.
We should have a difficult time looking in the mirror when that happens.
I know.
I'm sorry, I digress. But the opportunity is there. One of the things that teachers in the schools run into, however, are the naysayers in their own building.
Amen.
Is what the kids can't do because this year will never be the same, and you have to ignore that stuff.
Yeah.
You have to go and say, this is going to be probably our best year ever.
Yeah.
I get to know each kid. I've taught each kid once a week, one-on-one. I'll know more about them and their person, their musicianship, their progress, their goals in music, their goals in life. We're having a ball in the band room.
Yes.
And that's how that begins to bleed into the school.
Yes. And that negative's contagious. What's that great thing? It says, argue for your limitations and you'll get to own them. And,
That's exactly right.
The band director's the engine, the band's the train. The band's not going to go faster than the engine.
There's another little debate that I want to share with you. I wrote down last night. We're kind of in a crossroads in the band directing profession. Mm-hmm. We have the pedagogues, mm-hmm. and we have ones that we affectionately call the conductors or the wind band conductors. Mm-hmm. Some of them have even coined a different name for themselves. And I think we essentially, if we want to have greatness, musically, emotionally, musically, I think both are necessary. I think both are very vital. It's not that the pedagogues don't conduct, and sometimes the conductors, not the college guys, sometimes they don't know how to educate. But whenever I watch, excuse me, Carlos Kleiber conduct the orchestra, or the old Bernstein tapes, they rehearse the musicians.
Yes.
Jason Bettig rehearses the Marine Band.
Yes.
And they tell them essentially what they hear, either through gesturing or words, but none of them are muted.
Yes.
Not a one's been muted in rehearsal. So if they only needed this to get the sounds come forward, they could mute themselves, but they don't. And so I wanted to share that with the younger band directors, because we've gotten the impression that as long as I can conduct it, it's their responsibility to follow. And part of that is true, but you got to put something in their minds to follow,
right? Which
is what the great conductors have always done.
Yes, absolutely. Let me throw another one here at you. Again, I think this has always been important, but at this particular time with the pandemic going on, Alfred, and all that sort of thing, how important is music education and music industry working together? How important is that right now?
More vital than ever. When I first began teaching, particularly at the last of the years, when there was a lot more commerce in the community than there were when I taught in the other community, my band boosters wanted to do all the advertising and all the communication with businesses around the community, businesses at large. And I would say, well, the music stores are, that's our corner of the world. And maybe we should stay within our corner of the world, because we're all collaborators in this education process. These people that make instruments and have printing companies, they could print anything for a living. They could turn into Simon & Schuster one-on-one, or they can go out and build ventilators. So the relationship between the classroom teacher and the music industry is vital because we're in the same community. And the good ones, such as Con Selmer, are committed to providing a great education for music students and music teachers. And I don't say it just because I'm on this situation with Con Selmer. It's just through my 44 years after undergraduate background, they have proven to be the one of the few that are serious about assisting in any way that they possibly can. And there are others that do the same thing. The local vendors do something very similar. So I think it's even more critical, particularly because the economy has shifted so drastically.
Yeah.
And they can provide tools that sometimes we can't provide for ourselves.
Yeah. We either hang together or we hang separately. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's it. Can you tell us just a little bit about the organization you were talking about before and how many people now are involved and what you're doing? This is just wonderful.
Well, thank you. It was formed up in 2011. I did a clinic for the DeKalb County Schools here in Atlanta. It's almost an all-Black, well-developed, middle-class school district with terrific powerhouse bands, many of them that played at National Concert Band Festival, state conferences. Did a clinic for them 11 years ago, and at the end of it was an in-service with 8 hours a day for 5 days. Pardon me. Former student of mine is a supervisor of music, Don Roberts. Mm-hmm. So I did it for 2 or 3 years in a row. So at the end of the third year, they said, Alfred, let's just put an organization together so we can broaden this out. And so it blossomed then. And it went kind of dormant for about 5 or 6 years. But as the world changed to more digital online things. So when I retired, I looked up and the Facebook group was hanging in there. Mm-hmm. So we got the Facebook group for Minority Band Directors National Association. It's a collection of ethnic minority band directors throughout the country and the world, mostly the US, Caribbean, and in certain parts of Africa, but ethnic minorities. They're called very carefully to make sure that they're band directors before they can join and sign in, not band lovers. I love them, but this is a professional organization. Our membership now is 1,800.
Whoa.
1,800 band directors of ethnic minority grouping, with a few other friends and colleagues sprinkled in. Mm-hmm. And we use it as, I call it the Jet Magazine Facebook of the country. Jet Magazine was an all-Black magazine, if viewers aren't familiar with. It was a little small weekly periodical that came out of Chicago in the 1950s. And it carried the news from coast to coast in the Black community because there was no other vehicle to do that. And so if it wasn't in Jet, it wasn't true, from Maine to California. And so this is intended to our organization intended to serve, promote, mentor, and celebrate ethnic minority teachers throughout the country. So it's a tool so whenever something happens great, this person gets a new job, this person finishes a master's, this person finishes a doctorate, this person goes to this event, then it's a good news share. It's also a lobbying group, a place where people can come in and vent whatever frustration they may happen to have from time to time. And it's a sounding board. And it's turned into a great organization that Con Selmer has helped us out with on any number of occasions. We had a convention 2 years ago. We were scheduled to have a convention last year, but Corona got in the way, and I don't know what's going to happen this year, depending on the schools. This summer, we had 7 Zoom sessions.
Wow.
7 2-hour Zoom sessions with the best of the best in the industry, most of which were ethnic minority, which included Otis Murphy and DeMondre Thurman, and Kenneth Tompkins, principal trombone in Detroit Symphony, to Scotty Barnhart, leader of the Count Basie Band. Wynton Marsalis came in for a 2-hour visit. And then Chris Martin came in. Julian Bliss did a session from Great Britain at 12:30 a.m. And we had 8 of them. And we had a band director marathon that we're very proud of, which was a back to school marathon. It was 12 hours. We defined it out. We designed it after the old Jerry Lewis telethon.
Yeah.
You just kind of peeped in when you wanted to peep in, you peeped out when you didn't want to. And it was very successful. We had about 3,000 people on those calls. It was on social media as well. So we're excited because it's just in the early stages of developing. And it's his purpose.
You're running at top speed. I think you're the only band director I've ever known that went to the Macy's Day Parade and the Rose Parade in the same year?
Completely accidental. Had no intention. We applied to both of them with the hopes of getting into one, and got into both of them. And I knew we couldn't afford to do them both, so I called them both independently and asked could they delay our application for a year. And they both said no, and never apply again if you do. So we went back and we put it on bid, and it wasn't too bad. It was about the cost of a trip to Europe, and it wasn't too bad. And my community band, the College Wind Symphony, is going into its 22nd season.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Started it off about halfway through my teaching career.
Well, you got there just as everything got good, didn't you? I mean, the last question I have, well, first of all, any advice to our friends before we wrap this up? And this is going so fast.
Yes, just believe in yourself, believe in music, and believe in the joy of music, and be creative, and more creative again, in order to communicate your musicianship to your students, and they can grow musically, socially, emotionally, and now from a health standpoint, wellness standpoint. And I think all those are critical. So, but don't give up the ship. This won't last forever. When we get back together, you'll find that your students are probably going to be wiser, brighter, and possibly even stronger than they were. We taught this large subject that we called the band.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just a very last favor. Will you come back and visit us again on Backstage?
You call, I'll answer, as always. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. You're a dear friend. I love you. Tell the family I said hi. Thanks for being here with us. And to all of our watchers, it was a home run today, wasn't it? This is a grand slam. Thanks, Alfred.
Thank you, Tim. Bye-bye.
Blessings.
Thank you. Same to you.